along, you know that we've already covered a lot about communication, why it's crucial, and how it impacts team morale and productivity. In today's video, we're going to get a little more practical. We're going to dive into some of the most common methodologies that can really make a difference in how your team works together. Now, I bet you're thinking, methodologies, isn't that a bit formal? But here's the thing. These are just tried and true ways of making sure everyone is on the same page and that ideas are flowing as smoothly as possible. Whether your team is in the same room or scattered across the globe, having a solid communication framework is crucial and makes all the difference in the world. So let's get into it. First up, let's talk about direct communication. And this is exactly what it sounds like. Clear, straightforward conversations where everyone knows exactly what's being said and what's expected. Think about when you're in a meeting and someone says, we need to hit these deadlines and here's who's responsible for what. There's no guessing, right? Everything is clear and on the table. Direct communication is great because it minimizes understandings and keeps everyone aligned. It's particularly effective in fast-paced environments where there's no time for mixed messages. Next up, we have active listening. I know we've talked about this in the previous video, but it's so important that it deserves a second mention. Active listening is much more than just hearing words. It's about truly understanding what the other person is trying to communicate. It means asking follow-up questions, clarifying points, and as I also talked about in the previous video, sometimes reading between the lines. This methodology is especially valuable when dealing with complex issues or when you're trying to build trust within your team. Another methodology that is worth mentioning and in my opinion is so underrated is collaborative communication. And this one's all about creating a dialogue rather than a monologue. It's about making sure that everyone has a voice and that all ideas are considered. This can be particularly powerful during brainstorming sessions or when you're trying to solve a problem as a team. When people feel like their input is valued, they're more likely to be engaged and committed to the outcome. And now I want to give you some examples of how these methodologies play out in real life. Okay, imagine that you're leading a project and all of a sudden everything starts to get a little bit chaotic. Deadlines are looming and the team is definitely feeling under pressure. What would you do? This is exactly where direct communication becomes your best friend. You sit down with your team and say, all right guys, here's what we need to get done by the end of the week. Sarah, you're handling the presentation. John, you're on the data analysis. And I'll take care of the client updates. Clear, concise, and the most important part, everyone knows what they are expected to do. Now picture a situation where a team member seems a bit off. They're a lot quieter than usual, maybe even a bit withdrawn. You sense that something is apparently off. So here in this scenario, this is where active listening comes into play. You take them aside and say, hey, I noticed that you've been a bit quiet lately. Is there anything on your mind? And then when you ask this question, you really want to actively listen to their response. Maybe they're feeling overwhelmed, or maybe they have a concern that hasn't been addressed. By actively listening, you're not just solving a potential problem, you're also showing that you care. And then there's collaborative communication. Let's say your team is stuck on a challenge and you need some fresh ideas. Instead of dictating the solution right away, you open up the floor. Let's hear what everyone's thinking. And no idea is too out there. What can we try? This is golden. This approach not only brings more ideas to the table, but also empowers your team to take ownership of the solution. It's amazing how often the best ideas come from the most unexpected places when you create a space for open dialogue. So these methodologies, direct communication, active listening, and collaborative communication are simple but incredibly powerful tools. And they're not about adding more to your plate. They're actually about making sure that what's already there is being communicated effectively. When used consistently, these approaches can transform the way your team interacts, making everyone feel more connected, more understood, and ultimately more productive. Which one resonated with you the most? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys, and make sure to stick around for the next episode.